right, Pickle. It is time to roll out the Week 11 Dave Campbell's Texas Football, Associated Press Texas High School Football Rankings. Dave Campbell's Texas Football has published the state's most respected Texas high school football rankings for decades and is the official rankings provider of the Associated Press since 2019. These rankings are compiled by the Dave Campbell's Texas Football staff. Before we move on, pretty robust conversation this weekend about how to stack up 6A, because there was a lot of movement within 6A. There's movement all over the place in the rankings. But the big question is, who's the number one team now that Duncanville has fallen? Let's find out together. Let's start with Class 6A. The top 25 with the number one Galena Park North Shore Mustangs, who get the nod at number one after their win over Atascocita. DeSoto's win over Duncanville nudges them up to number 2. Westlake up to number 3. Vandegrift up to number 4. And then you find Duncanville falling from number 1 to number 5. There's a lot more movement there besides the top of the table as well. Specifically, North Crowley gets a big win. They move up to number 6 ahead of their big showdown with Crowley. Byron Nelson, their big win over Southlake Carroll, vaults them all the way up to number 7 with a big win over the Dragons. A wildly impressive victory for them. Katy remains the same at number 8. And then you get into some more movement. Humble Summer Creek up a spot to number 9 with their win last week over C.E. King. Southlake Carroll tumbles to number 10. Atascocita tumbles to number 11. There's also movement at the bottom of the rankings. Number 16, Pflugerville Weiss crashes out with their loss to Hewitt Midway. Number 25, the Woodlands crashes out with their loss to Willis. As a result, there's some movement. Dripping Springs, San Antonio, Reagan, Rockwall, Prosper, Coppell, Lake Travis, Klein Collins, and Fort Bend Ridgepoint all move up a spot. McKinney back into the rankings with their win over Denton Geyer, now number 24, and Louisville back into the rankings with their win over Plano East. They are now the number 25 team. So the answer is Galena Park North Shore moves up from number 2 to number 1 after Duncanville's loss. DeSoto up to number 2. We'll have more coverage of this on TexasFootball.com about the decision-making process there, but in the end, the Galena Park North Shore Mustangs, your new number 1 team in Class 6A. To 5A we go, where there was also some movement. 5A Division I got a facelift. Number 3 Mansfield Timberview loses to Richland. They crash out of the rankings. Number 4 Port Arthur Memorial loses to Barbers Hill. They crash out of the rankings. As a result, your new number 3 team is Fulshear, number 4 Smithson Valley, and number 5 Red Oak ahead of their big game with Midlothian this week. Frisco Lone Star up to number 6, PSJA North up to number 7, Forney up to number 8, and 2 new teams into the rankings. Number 9 College Station back into the rankings with a big win over rival A&M Consolidated. And new to the rankings, the Royals of Richland, 9-0 after a 10-point win over Mansfield Timberview. They are the number 10 team in the state. 5A Division II, much less interesting. Literally everybody won with the exception of Montgomery Lake Creek at number 2, who is idle. Your top 5 remains unchanged. Melissa, Montgomery Lake Creek, Midlothian Heritage, Texas High, and Port Neches Groves. To 4A we go. 4A Division I only had a little bit of churn at the bottom. Bay City loses to Iowa Colony. That drops them out of the rankings. They were number 10. And new to the rankings, I should say back into the rankings, the La Vega Pirates, who were on deck, they jump up to number 10 despite being idle. Everything else remains the same. Top 5 unchanged. Bernie, Salina, Anna, Kilgore, and Iowa Colony. 4A Division II is basically exactly the same. A little bit of churn at the bottom. Number 10 Van loses to Carthage. That drops them out of the rankings. And in their place, how about the 9-0 Ingleside Mustangs? With a win over Orange Grove, now 9-0 in the year, the number 10 team in the state. Top 5 remains unchanged, though. Carthage, now 10-0 and taking a Week 11 open date. Silsbee, Pleasant Grove, Cuero, and Wimberley. To 3A we go. 3A Division I, kind of a similar story. Some churn at the bottom, but stability at the top. Number 9, Clyde, loses to Iowa Park, and that knocks him from the ranks of the unbeatens and from the ranks of the state ranked. Number 9, Paradise is the benefactor here as they move up one spot to number 9. And into the rankings, the 9-0 Jourdanton Indians. Jourdanton gets a big win over Lytle, 51-10 to move to 9-0 on the year. They get a nice win over Lytle. They are now the number 10 team in the state. Top 5 remains unchanged. Columbus, Malakoff, Winsboro, Brock, and Bushland, your top 5 rather. 3A Division 2, nothing to see here. Went 9-0. Newton was idle. Top 5 remains unchanged. Gunner, Canadian, Tidehaven, Hooks, and Newton, your top 5 in 3A Division 2. To 2A. Hope you're hungry for nothing. 2A Division 1, unchanged. Everyone's a winner. Everyone goes 10-0. In fact, they gave up a grand total. Top 5 gave up a grand total of 12 points all weekend. Top 5 remains unchanged. Timpson, Refugio, Toller, Stratford, and Cooper ahead of Timpson's big game against Garrison on Saturday or on Friday. Keep an eye on that one. 2A Division 2's got a little bit of churn. Number 9 Seymour loses to Windthorst. That drops them out of the rankings. Groover moves up a spot despite being idle to number 9. And new at number 10, the Trojans of Windthorst. It's 7-2, but a big winner over Seymour. Getting hot at the right time are the Trojans of Windthorst. They're the new number 10 team in 2A Division 2. Top 5 unchanged. Albany, Martin, Newham, Collinsville, and Lovelady. To 1A we go. 6-man football. A little bit of movement here. Borden County scores a really nice 42-30 win over number 9 Rankin. As a result, they move up a spot to number 9. The Rankin crashes out of the rankings. That makes room for Union Hill. The Bulldogs are 9-0 after a 58-0 win over Savoy. Into the rankings for the first time this year. Top 5 remains unchanged. Gordon, Knox City, Abbott, Westbrook, and Jonesboro. 1A Division 2, nothing to see. Everyone was a winner with the exception of Jayton, Klondike, and Whitharrell, who were all idle. Top 5 remains unchanged. Benjamin, Oglesby, Jayton, Richland Springs, and Klondike. Richland Springs now 10-0. They have finished their season. Regular season, rather. They await the playoffs at undefeated. The private school ranks. The 11-man ranks were easy to do, okay? Everyone was a winner. St. Thomas gets a big win over Houston St. Pius X. Austin Regents makes short work of San Antonio TMI. Argyle Liberty Christian now 9-0 on the year with a win over Fort Worth All Saints. Top 5 unchanged. Houston St. Thomas, Dallas Christian, Austin Regents, Argyle Liberty Christian, and Bel Air Episcopal. But it's the private school 6-man ranks that got a makeover. Okay, so Pasadena First Baptist, the number 1 team in the state, knocks off number 3 Conroe Covenant in an emphatic fashion, 68-20. They remain number 1. That knocks Conroe Covenant out of the rankings. Also, number 4 Bastrop Tribe Consolidated loses to Victoria Cobra's homeschool. And as a result, Houston Emery Weiner moves up a spot to number 3. Back into the rankings, Austin Hill Country. They get a 114-70 win over Austin, Texas School for the Deaf. They are now up to number 4 in the rankings. Their one loss in the year, by the way, is to Jonesboro, which is a loss that has aged pretty well. And new to the rankings, I think for the first time, the Victoria Cobra's homeschool. Now 9-0 on the year after a win over state-ranked Bastrop Tribe Consolidated. They are your number 5 team. So there you have it. The Week 11 Dave Campbell's Texas Football Associate Press, Texas High School football rankings. A little bit of movement across the state, especially at the 6A marks. You can find all the rankings at texasfootball.com/rankings. Matt Stepp and I are going to have a deep dive discussion about this on Tep and Step, about the conversation that went into ranking North Shore number 1 in 6A, because it was a real debate, and I think like I said, I think that there's no wrong answer there. The funny thing is, Pickle, you know what we're going to do next week? The world's most useless rankings. Next week is an exercise. Next week is an exercise in insanity, because we're going to do these rankings, and who cares?
Yeah,
you know
it's
what
done
I mean?
At that point.
Like, it's just oh, you finished the year at number 1. Okay, if you lose in the first round of the playoffs, who stinking cares?
Mm-hmm. You
know what I mean? So yeah, I always think that the final postseason rankings are funny, and we will have those for you next week on Texas Football Today.
Thanks so much for watching that video. If you would like more and to be notified when they come out, go ahead and click that subscribe button right down there. You can also watch Texas Football Today every day live at noon on TexasFootball.com, Facebook, Twitch, and right here on YouTube. For more of the best coverage of Texas football in the Lone Star State, go to TexasFootball.com/subscribe.